Good morning, everyone. Thanks to the organizers for making this wonderful event happen. Today I'm going to present Design for Exploration and Discovery. It's a retrospective on an interactive exhibition which is in display in Iceland. And Design for Exploration and Discovery is a collection of observations I made after we released the exhibition, and it's basically a collection of what we learned in the making of this interactive exhibition. Before going into the design part, I would like to focus on exploration and discovery. And exploration, it is something that it's with us as a behavior, as a way to get to know something about the world and environment. And when we explore, we face the unexpected. This was a sound recorded during the Rosetta mission. The Rosetta mission sent a spaceship to interject its comet, and they basically dropped a lander on the comet. And while the lander was going down, trying to basically land on this comet, the lander was recording everything we could possibly record, because this is completely new territory for us, and everything we can get to know about this comet is going to be important for us. And one thing it was recording was the magnetic field of the plasma. The plasma is a collection of gas around the comet. And while this lander was sensing the plasma and the magnetic field, the scientists realized that there was some sound waves in the air that were possibly audible. And they expanded frequencies and they made it into a sound. So this is a sound that came from the comet. And what I found extremely fascinating was that even the top scientists who were working on this, basically European planetary mission, did not expect to find the sound. So this was a sound that went beyond the knowledge that we have as human beings and the knowledge provided by science. It's kind of reassuring that science does not know everything. This is something that surprises us. It's something that takes us into, being willing to kind of explore and go somewhere else. And so, part of the mindset of an explorer is be ready for the unexpected. And be ready for the unexpected sort of makes you anticipate novelty, that you will find something new. Now, how does this relate to interactive exhibitions? Design for exploration and discovery is this design perspective that sort of came up with, that wants to frame the visitor into the mindset of an explorer while he's interacting with the interactive exhibition. And we want to do this because when you anticipate novelty, you in fact enhance learning. And I found some scientific research from psychology and cognitive science, and they found out that anticipation of novelty triggers your reward mechanism in the brain. It means when you anticipate novelty, when you think, let's say, when you are in the mindset of an explorer, you anticipate novelty, you sort of get more rewarded, or you see novelty as a reward. And what it does is that improves the effect of detection of novelty. And when you detect, when the brain detects novelty, the brain improves or enhances its plasticity. The brain becomes more plastic, and being more plastic, everything you experience leaves an impact. And from this, I sort of connected the dots, and I said let's try to frame the visitor. Next time we're gonna do exhibition, try to put the visitor into this mindset, so that anything that's gonna somehow explore and try in the interactive exhibition is gonna leave an impact. which is like much stronger. So I'm going to use a study case, which is this interactive exhibit, which is in display in Iceland, in a museum called Eldimar. I work in a company called Gagarin, and Gagarin released this interactive exhibit. This is a museum in the south part of Iceland, in an island called Vestmannaeyjar. It's a museum that wants to commemorate an eruption that happened in 1973, particularly violent, and almost destroyed the town, but it didn't. So like, you know, now you can go there, you can visit the town, and because the event was like so like intense and deep and profoundly impacted the community, they wanted to make a museum for like commemorating this. So as I said, like this presentation and the design team I'm presenting is a retrospective. It's not the way in which we designed the particular interactive exhibitions, but what we learn afterwards. When you go into the Eldimar Museum, one of the installations you're going to find is a sandbox. And this is an interactive piece, and it's literally like a sandbox with shovels, and on top of it we project a layer. It's an outline of the city. Inside the narrative arc of the museum, we want to make a metaphor of the cleaning after the eruption. After the eruption, there was a lot of ashes that covered the whole town, and it was an important moment for the people living in that town because they had to reorganize completely their society in order to clean up the city. And with this installation, we want to sort of like cover this chapter of the story. But at the same time, like we sort of like want to engage the visitor. And what happened there is that you can dig the sand, and then as you dig, you go deeper, and the layer on top changes. You can see like outline of buildings. And if you dig even deeper, you can see like a picture of somebody that was living there in that house. And so like you sort of like discover the memories as you dig deeper. Now, from an interactive perspective, that's like a nice use of tangibility and aesthetic of interaction. Tangibility, it's like pretty clear. There's like no buttons to press here. It is a sandbox. And because it's a sandbox with shovels, you already know what to do. You kind of imply that you have to dig something. Not only, like sand as an interface, it's pretty pliable. The more, like it's kind of pleasurable like to dig, it's fun. I mean, I have these memories when I was little in Italy. I was playing with sand a lot when I was going like summer vacations. It's fun, and not only, it's also responsive. Every time you dig with a shovel, you get an immediate effect. So you kind of like, the more you dig, the more you want to dig like deeper, and you want to find out. And not only, there's a difference between pressing the button on a screen and digging the sand. In digging the sand, you're thinking that you might find something down there. Perhaps a treasure, perhaps it's something. You've played with the imagination of the visitor. You kind of like put it into a mindset that's different from the role you usually have when you use a computer or you use like user interface. So like tangibility is important in this installation. It's also like way more reliable or flexible, or like let's say like allows more freedom to the visitor, to the point that some visitors find special ways to use it. Surely different from what was intended, but still, it is still like engaging. It is like part of the story. It is still somehow, you know, allows for this sort of unexpected behaviors from the visitors. You shouldn't like constrain the visitor too much. Leave it free, because freedom is part of the exploration as a way of learning. And it's funny that like the mom like thought that was very cool. It was like jumping inside like a museum like exhibit of some sort. But like there was like a family, there was also a grandfather, and the grandfather thought that was like the worst thing that could possibly happen, and he ran like all the way down the museum to like take the kid out of it. So he thought that that was just like it was going to ruin something that was not supposed to touch. So I want to show this example as a way to say that like you can use tangibility and you can use like materials, sort of like elicit this idea of I'm exploring something. You can play with materials, you can play with interfaces, because beyond user interfaces and screens and touch screens, sort of like frame the visitors into this mindset and somehow like having an higher impact on the learning objectives that comes with the museum. As you progress in the storyline, as you progress in the museum, you're going to find another interactive exhibit. This one takes the form of a round table. And on top of the table, we project an animation. Now, this animation is still, it's not doing anything. So as you can see, around the table, there's a metal ring. So the visitor is supposed to turn the wheel to make the video going either forward or backward. So it's indeed a tangible way to realize video scrubbing. It's the same video scrubbing that you do in YouTube, with the difference that here you have a metal wheel that you have to operate with your hand. And you feel the metal in your hands, and it's cold and it's heavy. It's heavy enough not to be uncomfortable. It's like heavy enough to be like to kind of provide the resistance, but not be uncomfortable, because the wheel, it's not only like a way to operate the installation, but it's also a metaphor of time. As you turn the wheel, you go back and forward in time. So it has to be an operation that within the narrative of the installation has to be important, and has to have an importance. And what I found very interesting about this particular interactive installation is that it turns out to be a group experience. Conversely from many other interactive exhibitions or interactive installations where by using screens or touch screens, you sort of kind of like framing into a certain isolation, you sort of kind of invite the visitors to be alone as they operate with the installation. And that's like not necessarily what you want to have in the museum space where your families coming over. So I thought that this one was particularly dense of meaning as an interactive installation. So I wanted to look at it in a deeper way. And because I have a background in sociology from past researches, I thought let's look at this interactive exhibition from the point of view of a particular theory, of Adam Kendon that he collected into a book called Active Interaction. Kendon made theories in the 70s about how we interact face-to-face with each other. He looked at groups, and specifically looked at conversations. How do we carry on conversations, and how do we relate to each other? So as a sociologist, he observed our group activities and tried to make somehow like devise a meaning, what is the structure of these social interactions that we're doing. And at the most basic level, you have two individuals, and they want to talk to each other. And in order to kind of like carry on this conversation together, you need to have an amount of space, or you can mention this as a visibility. Kendon calls this transactional segment. It's the amount of space you need in order to have an interaction with the person in front of you. And that's true for the individual in the left, but it's true also for the individual in the right. And what's interesting here is actually the intersection of these spaces. The intersection of these spaces, it's that amount of space that you need in order to carry on this group activity. And this space here becomes really like the fundamental ingredient. That is the space that if you don't have, you cannot have the group activity, but if you do have the group activity. To the point that you might have access points to this space, and as you enter the space, then you become part of the activity. Through body language, through postures, so on and so forth. And it becomes like more interesting, of course, when you have more people, because like the structure of space becomes more complex. And the intersection of space is going to be in the middle, and you're going to have more access points. And like what is strong about this model is that it shows how the group, it becomes a unity at interaction level. So that is a group activity because the space is shared and common. So I took this theory from sociology and I looked at the interactive table, and I found a number of ingredients that make this exhibition succeed as a group experience. The first ingredient is the circle. There's something about circular shapes or round tables, of areas, of like the video that we project on top, And it's also like kind of suggests a certain equality amongst all the members of the installation. So there is no one else that is like on a high hierarchy or lower hierarchy, or has like more rights of controlling the exhibition or less. Then we have a common focus of attention. They are all looking at the middle of the table, and anytime you operate the wheel, the effect of that is visible by anyone. So anyone can participate visually, but also like participate in the experience. And then there are like multiple access points. You can access the installation from different directions. There is not a specific way to enter the installation and to operate it in a specific way. So the installation is not really a problem to solve. It's quite easy. It's like very natural to understand what you have to do. You simply like get closer to it and you operate with it. And the interaction is tangible. And because you have to move the wheel, your interaction becomes a performance. You're performing in front of others, and somehow it becomes a sort of body language. They can see that you're moving the wheel, you can see that you purposely want to do something with this installation, they follow up what you're doing. And the manipulation that you're doing is actually meaningful to the story. You're moving the time ahead or backward, and like the visitors that are with you are either collaborating, they're helping you moving the wheel, being heavy, and being like in the same participation, in the same experience as you. Or what might happen, it's like the emergence of a different social structure where there is a leader that turns the wheel, and everyone is like looking at the table, at the video that basically goes on and tells the story of the eruption, as it happens in there. And this is like, I think this is a very good example of how to design an interactive installation that is a group experience, and it shapes also the social landscape. In fact, this particular installation is pretty successful. Perhaps like it is like the most successful exhibition in the museum. It works also as a social attractor. If there is somebody using the wheel, people will look at this, will be like, of course, become curious and be engaged in the same group experience. Will join into the story at the point where the video has been operated. And yes, and with this I conclude. Thanks.